Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching, a St. Louis City SC podcast. And we've got another dual episode for you all today. It's going to be one where we look back at the 2-0 loss against Seattle and look ahead to installment number 2 of this season's Barbecue, our sporting Kansas City rivalry. And as we head again over the border to Kansas to play against them. Now looking at this match is a pretty big one. But Justin, before we get into all that stuff and all the heartbreak last night, the continual heartbreak, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I think, another tough game. I did predict the starting lineup, 11 for 11 on that one. I was proud of myself on that, but obviously it just didn't matter in this game. But there is some other news going on in City and the MLS that I think we'll touch on before we get into the going to Kansas City, which I'll be in attendance for. We will have boots on the ground, Jake. So get ready for some content all weekend.
Love it. Love it. So big news. You mentioned it already. Looking agnostically across the league. Big news last night with Kevon Sullivan, 14 years old, 293 days. So just south of 15, became the youngest ever player last night to debut in any major professional sports league in North America. Not just the MLS. He obviously beat Freddie Adu, who used to hold that record by a good chunk of days, I think a couple of weeks. But it's an absolutely insane thing to hear that a person that can't even legally have a permit is playing professional sports now in this country. And he's not an unknown quantity. We know that he's already a huge talent. He's a homegrown player for the Union. He's going to earn more than $500K a season when he gets going there. And he's eventually going to go to Manchester City when he turns 18. So that's all already set out in front of him. He was doing well for the MLS Next Pro team, and he got into play last night. And he came in right after his brother scored a goal. So he's playing with his brother too. So it's a really cool story.
Really cool story. So he literally beat Freddie Adu by 2 weeks exactly, 14 days. And I mean, it's kind of insane to think about. I think we talked about it when we had we were talking about Miggy. Like, the dude had to get dropped off at the game by his parents. He can't get there, or he walked. Like, he's literally 14 years old. What were you doing when you were 14? What is that? Just graduated 8th grade, getting excited for high school freshman year, nervous. This dude's getting nervous. He's coming onto the pitch for a professional game in North America. Absolutely insane. And I think we lost Jake there. So quickly, I will touch on the next piece of news. Jake, you back?
Yep, I'm back. Just had to get off the Wi-Fi and onto the Ethernet, which is the beauty of these days. But yes, I don't know. I mean, so cool to have that story here, and that's making obviously the rounds. But more news locally for us here with the club is Mikai Joyner is going to be signing a homegrown deal with St. Louis City once his deal with City 2 comes to an end after this season. We saw him play the second half last night for City on a short-term loan for now. He'll be on that deal through 2028, so he joins Tyson Pierce, Caden Glover, Miggy Perez as the City homegrowns. I think we're continuing to show that pathway to the first team. For those that don't know about him, he's a 17-year-old Bloomington, Illinois native. He's having a breakout season with City 2 so far with, I believe, 9 goals, 1 assist through the campaign. City 2, currently contending for the top spot in MLS Next Pro. So he's been a huge part of that. And we saw some of his impact last night. So good to see him get some of that. It's crazy, Justin. We talk about a 14-year-old. And that makes 17 look so pedestrian, but this is still really cool, really young guy that's hopefully going to be, with the team and making a first team impact here shortly.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely insane. And I will say, Jake, and kind of not getting too far ahead of it, we had 5 guys last night that have had more minutes, I believe, in City 2 this year than they had for the first team, getting into the game and actually playing, not just on the bench. So it's one of those things where we've had injuries, but at least we're not pulling from a team that's bottom of the table in MLS Next Pro. Currently, right now, City 2 sits second place behind Philadelphia, 36 points, and they've played 16 games, averaging 2.25 points per match, which is the most in the MLS Next Pro right now, even though they're second, because they have played 1 game less than Philadelphia. The team's been buzzing, and those guys are still finding a way to contribute and still score goals without Johnny Klein, without Kojima, without Koyer, without just Caden Glover, these guys pulling up and going up and down. So it's a big testament to our pipeline.
And finally, Justin, before we get into a little bit of the game last night, the saga's over. It's done. Sam Adeniran is gone. He is no more with St. Louis City SC, and it goes out sputtering. Man, you and I had our own debates about his value and his worth and what it would take to pry him from our clutches this year, knowing that he only had this year on his contract with us. And he's going to Philadelphia Union for a deal. They're acquiring him for up to $150,000 in GAM, plus an additional $450,000 if incentives are met. They have no indication if that's this season or if that's next season. But remember, his contract is just this season, so I assume that is for just this season. If you look at the whole of this, obviously there was definitely some locker room stuff going on with him culturally that doesn't seem like we are getting good gel between him and the players or him and the coaches. I'm sure AZ's leaving didn't help that. But from a just business perspective, this is tough, right? Because we acquired him, from Seattle for $100,000 in GAM for 2023, and then 100 based on performance in 2024. You imagine that performance wasn't really hit, so we're not forking that money over to Seattle. But they also maintained the sell-on fee, so I'm sure they're getting a cut of this as well. And we got $1 million out of hand, apparently, from a Norwegian club back in March. So this is quite a tanking to value and really unfortunate when you think about what we could have had for him and what we ended up getting.
Yeah, it's pretty insane when I'm sharing for everybody watching on YouTube, the transfer market pricing of Sam Adeniran. You can see it stayed pretty steady below 200K all the way up until he came to City. It jumped to 600, then to 800K. And then they jumped. This is where you and I had the argument, Jake. I don't think he was worth a $600,000 jump to go that high to get to 1.5 mil, I believe it was. And now looking back on it, kind of wish we would have sold him for $1 million. I think that was one. You and I had the argument. I didn't think he was worth that much. I thought that we should have absolutely sold him when we had the chance to. And hindsight 2020, I would agree with that now. But I think it was a time period where we didn't have people scoring. And Klaus was getting hurt, and we didn't have Nico. And it's like, kind of need to hold on to him just in case. But then with the locker room issues, just really sputtered out, and just kind of a sad end for Sam Adeniran. And he's for sure one of those guys that does not want to play in the MLS. He was looking to go overseas. I would not be surprised if he's only with the Union for a year and he tries to find his way overseas on his own.
Yeah, I bet he signs for that Austrian side that's been trying to sign him last the moment that his contract is expiring in the Union. But I'll actually be really interested to see if they can tap into his potential, because obviously he's been a shadow of himself coming back into the team after going out with all the stuff happening in the background. But we'll see what the Union can get out of him. So I'm excited to kind of watch that. And I do wish the best for him, but man, that the saga really came to an end, after such high highs, at the end of last season, beginning of this season. But bye-bye, Sam. On to the game, Justin. Let's just kind of cover some themes and some big things last night that we saw. Obviously, the goals as well. One of the first things that sticks out to me was some of the officiating. And you saw it right away in the beginning with Durkin being slapped with the yellow card after taking what I would call a borderline foul yellow card challenge. But when it's the 4th minute, ref, please don't start the yellows right now. I mean, it's brutal. And with that, Durkin, I believe, because he was on the what do they call that? The MLS sort of disciplinary summary report. Justin, is he going to be suspended for the sporting match?
Yes, he is. Tom Timmerman sent that tweet out as well. So he was on the disciplinary summary that they do prior to the game, and he is now suspended going into our game this weekend against Kansas City.
That hurts. And off the back of that, there's an ensuing free kick from that Durkin yellow card. Back post delivery. Reagan's climbing up all over Hebert's back, and it's headed across net, but beats Berkey, but Parker's there for the goal line clearance. And you think to yourself, okay, wow, we haven't seen one of those in a while. Maybe we could be, trying to keep one off the board tonight. We will be really resolute in our defense. There was some life to us as well in behind from a long ball from Totland in the 11th minute where Thor occupied his man well enough to get Kajima over the top, bouncing over him, and he fired a tight-angled shot right into Fry's chest. First 15, Justin, I thought overall it was okay. You saw both sides kind of come out to play offensively. We were finding success in behind, targeting John Bell. People remember him. He was one of our center backs last year, and then Seattle claimed him on the re-entry draft. And then we were targeting Nuhu and Bell together. So left center back, left back, because those two guys, I think, are suspect. Nuhu is much so because he likes to go forward more. And we were finding success in behind, getting corners, getting to the end line, getting cutbacks in. But that wasn't going to persist all night. And Seattle got on the board in the 27th. Yeah,
so Jake, I'm actually going to present my screen and share real quick. Wi-Fi allowing. On this goal, I think the back line actually does well to start this. So you see we're all on a flat line, relatively consistent, good here. Ball gets played in behind. I think that's fine. Nielsen tries to hold him up, doesn't let him sneak through him untouched. We're fine here. This is a good position. You can see Jordan Morris is going to start. He's going to do a little jab step, start kind of floating to the back post. Fine. Totland's there. Parker's in a good position. Parker's in a great position here. Berkey goes down, which in my opinion, you can't be in no man's land right there. You either need to get that ball or be on your line, because you are very lucky that Tim Parker's there. But I have a very big problem, Jake, with right here, with what is he doing trying to clear this with the outside of his right foot. This is the second time I put the note in there, and you immediately were like, yeah, that was a Kansas City game. You remember where he tried to do like a half slide when he's running back over his right shoulder, tries to slide with his right foot? Learn to clear the ball with your left foot. And this is obviously going to be detrimental to him. If he clears with his left foot, it's a very easy, even if you don't get a lot of power on it, you get something on it. This is a tough outside of the foot bouncing ball trying to clear, and he tries to play with his right, goes off the inside of his left knee and into the back of the net. I think that Tim Parker, obviously you can see it in his face. He's upset looking up this guy like, what did I just do? You just got to get your left foot on it, buddy.
And I'll be harsh on him. The guy's a veteran, and you're saying use your left foot. I'm saying use whatever part of your body keeps it in front of you. You know, the guys, you know, Morris is creeping on your back shoulder. Just keep it in front of you. You don't need to clear it one time here. Just, you know, play this one safe. There's no one in front of you right now. Just block it, if anything. We don't need to, like, anyway, I just think it kind of got to try to get a little too cute. It's a tough bounce off the turf. And from a veteran, that's something that you cannot expect from them. And I think for us, it felt like a harsh undoing that we didn't deserve. And it kind of almost set the tone for the game. And again, that's now 4 games played against Seattle, 4 own goals straight in all 4 of those matches. No other team had ever done 3 in a row. So we have with the yips in Seattle. I mean, 100% with these own goals. It's crazy that we're having to help them so much and shooting ourselves in the foot like this.
Yeah, that's a tough stat to own. We like making history here at City, and that is one that we do not like to make. So I think that's extremely, extremely tough. I was surprised when they said that. It's kind of an insane stat to even look at. But, I mean, we had a couple other highlights and lowlights when we look at the rest of the first half. Leuven gets the ball out to Toland, who centers it for Thor, who just shanks it so badly off the outside of his foot. But it's good to see that we're getting there. But, again, we don't have the final touch to score those goals. Right at the end of the half as well, have a highlight. Leuven takes a short corner kick to Klein, who gives it back, pops it up back post to Nilsson, who gets a header blocked. But I love that you can kind of see that already with Leuven and Klein, and I would even say Toland, Kojima. They're starting to see in these free kick and Indy that, like, hey, if they're not paying attention, we have the skill power to just dink it short and then move around and try to get some good looks out of this. And I like the way that those guys are starting to connect.
Yeah, and at halftime, obviously we saw Indy get clocked at the end of the first half. Look, I mean, they showed the good angle on his nose. It did not look like a nose should. And I am not a nose or plastic expert, but man, that looked pretty messed up. And he ended up coming off at half, and Joyner comes on to play the full second half, hoping that Indy is okay. He's already worn the mask this season. Probably time for it to come back, assuming there isn't any further issues with maybe concussion protocol if he took a pretty violent blow. Did you see anything, Justin, there?
No, they wouldn't show the replay. He was down for a couple minutes. I don't know why it wasn't a yellow card. We've gotten a yellow card for every hit in the face this season. I'd love to know George's take on that. Put the George spotlight up, and we'll shoot him a text. But then also, they would not show a replay. And no, he for sure had a broken nose. But however, they came back and said that he was not coming due to concussion protocol. I would be pretty shocked, Jake, if he's allowed to play on Saturday. One, just thinking about concussion protocol in general, something very serious, and we need to take time with. Talking about Josh Yarrow, thinking about Taylor Twellman back in the day. And then 2, broken nose, thinking about this more specifically just back at the Euros with Mbappe. He was not able to even play the next game, even with a mask. So I do think that with us having such short rest and playing on Saturday, I'd be kind of surprised if we have Indy.
And by the way, if that would be the first game he would never have played in for this club since we've been a club, if that's the case, if he does not play against Sporting. So keep an eye out for that there. If I were to summarize this second half up, Justin, 2 words: Berkey and Nilsson are honestly my 2 takeaways. Berkey stood in his head all the second half, even after the goal. This game could have been 3-4, 5-0. But it was 2-0, and then Nilsson goes out at the end. But let me just talk about the goal that they got secondary. So Seattle scored in the 49th minute. Nilsson gave away a pretty cheap foul outside the 18, just one you don't need to make in that space, especially knowing that Seattle draws some of the most free kicks and fouls in the league. We said that in our preview. I think the fourth most fouls they've drawn as a team. So they get a free kick, and it's sent back post on a great delivery, I will say. And John Bell is just the hungriest guy in the box, climbs up over Totland and heads it back across net, just like you're taught in school. And it goes in for them, and they're back on with 2-0 just inside the first couple minutes of the second half, and they are in the driver's seat. And I will give credit to John Bell, great finish, obviously, but did not celebrate. Obviously, spent time with us. It's usually tradition, at least in some way, to not celebrate against your former team. But given how little he played for us, I couldn't have faulted him either way, but I respect it.
John Bell's a good dude. I appreciated that. What I did not appreciate, Jake, on this ball, I was like, oh, wow, that was a great cross. John Bell's a big dude, got up, won the header. Like, all right, fine. Tough goal to give up, but it's a free kick goal. No, Jake, if you go back to this again, it's our marking. Look at this. We got Durkin giving him a bear hug right now. Someone says, hey, Durkin, like down away, I guess, at the other goal. Watch what he does here, Jake. He just stares down at the other goal for the next second and a half. Like, oh, we're just going to leave John Bell just going on his own. Like, that's not on Totland for not winning that header. I don't know what Durkin's doing right here. And you just leave the guy that scores to get up for the goal. Just absolutely wide open. And it's just frustrating to me. I don't understand what we need to be doing in practice, but no one is marking. We have four, if we go back, what is that, 4 City players around John Bell, and no one is getting up for that header. And that you can't fault Totland for that. Durkin needs to be wrapping him up. And if you're not going to beat him to a header, yes, John Bell's probably going to win the ball in the air over you. Got size on you, got more hops. You got to at least make sure you knock him off so he can't have a clean header, and that's what he had there.
No, that's a good call out. It's not necessarily that we expect to win every aerial ball, but I think to challenge is more than enough most of the time, just to put guys off just slightly so they're not able to get such a clean opportunity there like Bell did on that header. So they go up 2-0. And the hard part here, and then I look at it, is every highlight we have the rest of the game is because of Berkey standing on his head. And so I'll rattle through a couple of those. In the 72nd minute, massive save as Parker slides across to partially block a shot that's still going on net. Probably makes Berkey's life harder. He's able to get some fingertips to it, parry that out. In the 74th minute, he comes up huge again after a poor giveaway from Klein, who I think last night was off the pace. He received the balls in dangerous areas, but his decision-making was just a touch or a step too slow in most instances that I saw. Morris flicked it across the goal with the outside of his right into Raul Ruiz, who had entered the game, and one times it. Berkey makes a huge save, gets up, and plays big. Just like the thing they tell you to do to a bear is like kind of scare it, like play big, make yourself bigger than you are. And he blocks the second follow-up opportunity from Rui Diaz. And it was a huge, really cool moment. And I'm just happy to see Berkey getting the chance to actually make saves versus just seeing the ball go in the back of the net.
Yeah, that one was huge. That was another one that I think was it earlier this season where he just did the diving across the net where he like hung on the crossbar. You just got to get your body big. He understands it. You just got to get in front of it, make sure it doesn't go in. And they had a little respectful, like kind of laugh and hug afterwards. Like, hey, that was a good chance by both of us there. Jake, I will say also the subs came in the 76th and 78th minute. Glover for Thor and Reed for Klein. And that's where, when we look at it, once Glover comes in and Reed comes in, those are, even though Klein came out, that was 5 total City 2 players that we had on the field, just to show you how hamstrung, no pun intended, we are right now. Because then in the 83rd minute, Nilsson goes down with his hammy injury. And I think you and I both are like, my first comment on that, I was like, screw it. We have 6 weeks for him to heal. Just keep him out of Leagues Cup. Very good point by you, though. What is he doing playing a full 80, which would have been a full 90 if he didn't get hurt, when we're already down 2-0, and he's just now coming back from injury, and is probably a little bit of a push to put him in anyways?
It's no, and then I obviously he's made of glass, and we know that. But I remember reading off, I believe last week, a report on just overall health from Jen Seiss, friend of the show, and wife George Gansner, and she had literally said verbatim that Joachim Nilsson still need to use caution with him, won't risk for a short-term gain. That kind of feels contradictory to what we just did last night. And if I'm not a manager of any team. I don't know health like anyone does, but it feels like a risk to play the guy that long, who hasn't played a game in that long, and who has hamstrings as thin as, a guitar string. I mean, it's just tough to see him go out like that. And obviously we haven't heard any news yet. It didn't look good. It looked like a lot of his other injuries have looked. And if I'm just guessing right now, just given history, I'm guessing it's another couple of weeks before we see him again. And it's a shame given the game state, given I just don't think you should be sending a guy into an 80-minute hot fixture against Seattle away from home on turf, who's just now getting back from a stint of weeks off due to a hamstring injury.
No, I completely agree. I mean, there's really nothing else to say to that. And there was nothing else to really talk about in the game anyways. I'm not going to lie, Jake.
Yeah.
I turned it off once he went down.
Last thing on that,
it's like midnight.
One shot on target in the second half, chasing the game. One.
And it was then if you want to look at stats across the entire game, it's very green. You're looking at Seattle. I think that's the way that there's nothing really for us that we won there. It's disgusting to look at the stats. And I don't think we really need to talk about this game much more. If you want to talk about player ratings, Berkey saved us. Parker's got a goal next to his name. Good for him. Oh, no, it went to our net. And then everybody else did not play very well. So my heart and soul juice player of the game is the exact same as yours. It's Roman Berkey.
Yeah, Berkey, 5 saves, 3.33 expected goals on target faced. Obviously, only let in 2, so he prevented, effectively 1 in the third. Made 10 recoveries on the ball as well. The only other heart and soul of the team that I would throw in as honorable mentions would be actually Kojima. I thought he worked his tail off last night for his shift, and one of the bright spots, I think, of the game, but also maybe of our season, considering how poorly it's gone. And before he got hurt, I actually really was valuing having Nilsson back in the team. His aerial prowess, his tenacity, the strength he plays, and just breathing down the backs of forwards. We missed that, and it's a shame that we're going to have to go without it again, but it's hard to look past Berkey. I mean, that dude must have been chugging gallons of soul juice prior to the game.
Yeah, he definitely went to souljuice.com and he used code ball watching for 20% off because that guy likes to save some money as well. So everybody else go do that. Go to Schnucks, Deerberg's on the run, anywhere in St. Louis, Sam's, Costco. We're going to be working with Luis coming up for another event. So stay tuned for that. I would say the only thing I would like to mention on the Kojima front, Jake, is the way that we play him now. I would like to see a little bit more offensively out of him. I think he is absolutely killing it in the press, winning the ball, getting it off his foot. I would like to see this guy take some people on, rip some shots, because he is literally playing underneath of the striker right now or on one of the wings, and you've got to have an offensive presence in that mindset. Otherwise, drop him back there by Durkin and move Leuven up because we need to have a little bit more offensive too.
Yeah. I think in an ideal setting, that's his position is like an 8 where he can do both and go back and forward because we know how much of an asset he can be. But it's great to know how flexible he is in getting the valuable minutes that he is. Last thing before sporting, Justin, we did not do great in the predictions. Actually, no, you did okay. You predicted a 2-1 loss. So you predicted us getting on the board. That didn't happen. And you had that in your bet as well. That did not happen. I had a 1-1 draw. Obviously, did not cash that, but I had the under 2.75, which did hit last night, barring some huge Berkey saves. So I got back on track with that Grahammer there. But Justin, this game now on the weekend in Kansas City, you're going to be there. I'm sure a lot of folks are going to be there. This to me feels like a consolation of some sort, or almost at this point, like our Super Bowl. Like this is. And eventually the third game will be really important as well. But you've got to have things to look forward to. And when basically the playoffs are out of the picture at this point, I know they're not quantifiably out of the picture at this point, but they're pretty much out of the picture at this point, even with just like the mathematical numbers. This game means so much to the fans, to the team. And the team has got to find a way to get up for this one, in my opinion, and really, really challenge. And Sporting is not a juggernaut this season. They're really languishing as well, but they are just marginally above us for the season so far. So I think this one means a lot to both teams, and for me, it's got to be a big emotional win for us. We've got to come out on top here.
I'm going to bring it straight into the magic number calc. As you mentioned it, Jake, playoffs are not 100% out of the picture yet. And so a reminder that this magic number calc is assuming that the team's pace that they are on right now stays consistent. If that is the case, with our 10 games left and we have 22 points, round 1 home field advantage, aka top 4 in the West, not achievable anymore. We have 10 games left. That would be 35 points. And round 1 home without home field, which would be number 5, 6, or 7, that's 30 points. Good chance we're not winning all 10 of our last games. Cross that one off the board as well. We're just hoping to sneak into the wild card. And as of right now, 44 points would do that. So 22 points in our last 10 games, basically doubling our points already. So yes, it's starting to look very bleak. I do think if we lose this game, it's done. We're not going to make the playoffs. And I think that's what I'm intrigued to see if they really dump all their eggs in one basket in the League's Cup. Can we get some kind of hardware out of this season? But it's looking like a struggle right now. Going into Sporting Kansas City, we'll talk about the math of it, but They are letting in a lot of goals. If we cannot score goals there, it's just done.
Yeah. And remember, the last fixture we had was away as well at Children's Mercy Park earlier this season. That was 3-3 draw. It was full of fun. I remember Klaus just sending, I think it's Willie Agata to the moon via a great challenge. And that was one of the most memorable things for me. But we came back from down. Totland saved us in the 90+2 to get it home and get a point, which was huge. And I think at the time, none of us were, obviously in the position we are now. We thought this would be a much more meaningful fixture for both teams as we got later into the season, but it's not. But as you said, Sporting not doing great this season either. Win-loss draw, they're 6-14-5. They're 12th in the West with 23 points, so just one more than us. 4 wins at home this season, 2 away. 40 goals scored this season. That's 10th best, but 51 against, which is second worst behind San Jose. We talked about San Jose and how brutal that team was when we played. So they're coming off a loss at Vancouver last night, so they'll have some serious travel in their legs coming home to play against us, even though it is at home. And some of the bigger games you pointed out, Justin, were all losses for them at home this season. Galaxy lost 3-2. Miami lost 3-2. RSL lost 4-3, but notice the trend in that. Those are first teams, basically first through third in their respective conferences, but all 1-goal games. So they can play it very, very tight. I think Kansas City is a team that plays with the opponent. They're not going to get blown out in most cases, especially at home, but they're not the best team either. So I see this one flying in terms of goals.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about that, yes, they're all 1-goal games. They can stay with teams, but they're giving up 3 goals, 4 goals at home against top teams. And like I said, we try to look at key results. And yes, it's hard to beat the teams at the top. That's why they're at the top. But these are all at home and showing that they're giving up 10 goals in 3 games. This has to be a game where we have to score some goals here. But getting into their key players to watch and kind of who we need to be weary of or cautious of on our defensive side, because they are scoring a relatively decent amount of goals with 40, and that's top 10 or so in MLS. But Willie Agata, their striker, 24-year-old Nigerian, 5'9", 165 pounds. He has 8 goals and 2 assists in just 13 full 90s played this year. So he's basically almost averaging just under probably a goal or an assist every 75, 80 minutes. He's number 9 in XG in MLS and number 4 in shots per 90 as well. So this is a guy that just looks to be a happy trigger when he is out there. Hasn't been out there in totality a lot for them because they played 22 games and he's only played 13 full 90s. So when we say full 90s, say he played 70 in one game, say he played, and then he only came on for 20 minutes as a sub in a different game. There's your 1 full 90. It's across all the games, not just starts.
Eric Tommy is another one that comes to mind for me. He's a German designated player for them. 5 goals, 3 assists, starting 20 of their 22 games played so far. Number 8 in progressive carries. He pulls a lot of the strings for this team. And remember, they still have Alan Polito as well, the Mexican international, now in his low to mid 30s. 4 goals, 3 assists this season, 18 of 22 games he has started. But look at this team in terms of other names to mention. Jake Davis is a right back, a budding right back, American. He's number 4 in tackles in the MLS this season, but he will miss this game as an alternate for the U.S. Olympic team, which he was named to. And then Johnny Russell, 4 goals, 4 assists, 13 starts, kind of struggling a little bit with injuries this season here and there. And then Tim Melia is still the keeper for them. 70 saves this season, which is top 10 in the league, but 44 goals conceded. So about a 61% save rate. And guess who's still at the helm, Justin? Pete Vermees remains. I mean, after the brutal start to last season, the brutal season this season so far for them, somehow this guy still has a job. I mean, it's unbelievable at this point. He's been there since 2009 still, which is absurd. And I know he's won a lot too, and with Kansas City specifically. But how long does it take to want to bring in a fresh face and kind of get your franchise to turn the page?
Well, that's what I was just going back and looking at, because they had an insane little run at the end of the season. Because if you remember last year, they were the first team ever to make the playoffs without having a single win in their first 10 games. And then the reason for that is they kind of caught fire at the end of the season. In their last 5 regular season games, they only had 1 loss, and that was to us, a 4-1 loss. And then they obviously beat us twice in the playoffs and then lost to Houston in the next round. But so it's one of those things where, like, he started slow and then he picked it up and got hot. If they don't pick it up and get hot in these last 10 or 11 games for them, I could see him being shown the door. Absolutely, because they should not have made the playoffs last year. They got lucky that they went on a run. Lucky, yeah, they just got hot at the right time. But if they don't do it this year, I think it might be on the way out for Peter.
I could see it, and it would make sense. And again, like at some point, you kind of need a fresh face to come in and shake some things up and move on a little bit. I mean, he's just been there for so long. Like the game has changed. So for me, looking at Sporting as a team, they like to do a lot of long shots. They attack primarily down the left as a team. They utilize a lot of the width and a high defensive line to kind of create a little bit of an offsides trap in behind. As a team at home, their last five are loss, win, loss, win, win. They're generating 1.25 points per match at home with a 0 goal differential. And offensively, it's not the best. There's a couple things I'm going to call out with them. They're well outperforming their xG. Their xG at home is 1.61, but their goals for per 90, so not home, just home and away, is actually 1.63. Their overall xG is 1.36. So this is a team that is clinical with their finishing and about average in xG at home. They score about every 43 or so minutes. In terms of when those goals are fallen, about 1 and 4 between the 61st and 70th minute, and 18% respectively from the 11th to 20th minute and the 81st and 90th minute. So put those together, second half looks like the most likely time for them to score.
Yeah, and we already talked about it. They can be a little bit trigger happy, but they do know how to finish when they do. They're number 3 in goals per shots on target and second best in goals minus XG as well. Their set pieces are actually something that we need to be definitely paying attention on, especially at that lost mark by Durkin, number 5 in XG and tied for third in goals for with 10 on set pieces. So this is one of those things where this team can actually break you down and has the individual talent to score through the run of play. And if they don't, they can also do it through set pieces. Looking more on their defensive side, their 1.40 XG per 90 is pretty average, but their 2.04 goals against per 90 is second worst in the MLS. We had to talk about that. Their defense is just letting the floodgates open, and just only second behind at San Jose in goals allowed. When do most of them come? 22% of them come in the last 10 minutes of the game. I would love if we could get another last minute goal, but this time let's flip it for a dub instead of a total tie.
I love that. Open play set piece wise, they're allowing the expected goals against second most in the MLS, and they're tied for the second most goals against in open play with 35. Set pieces, they've allowed the third most goals against, but they're about average in shots and XG allowed on set pieces. But set pieces looks like an opportunity there as well. They're a pretty aggressive team, number 6 in tackles, top 10 across the attacking, medium, and defensive thirds. So they will bring pressure kind of across the board. They're number 5 in blocking passes, kind of getting into those lanes and clogging them up. Number 5 in errors, though, committed defensively, leading to shots. And another thing I wanted to call out, this is something we don't get to say for all teams, but they're top 10 in high turnovers being created by their defense and generating shots on target for them. So they're top 10 in high turnovers leading to shots. In terms of goalkeeping, we mentioned Tim Melia already. He's pretty solid. Average in saves, not a great save percent this year so far. Only 2 clean sheets for Sporting, which is tied for second least. But they're also tied for the 4th most corner kick goals allowed. So if you're us, that's been something we've kind of fallen away from recently. Hopefully, I think this represents an opportunity to get back on the board. And we've seen some more, creative set pieces. And I think corner kicks, even last game, that the team's clearly working on in practice to generate more opportunities. So Justin, hearing all about Sporting, where they're at now, what they can do, what they're capable of, what are some of the things that come to mind to you for City to go out and win this game?
I think immediately, Jake, and I would love it, so I'm going to be there, is punch him in the face early. This is going to be a place where I think it's going to be a nice day in Kansas City. They're going to be rocking. They know that like we already mentioned, that other teams are looking at us and like, this is an easy win of a game. They're going to look to stomp us at home, knowing that their next game is going to be versus us is going to be back in St. Louis. So this is their last game versus St. Louis. And I think that Kansas City is going to be absolutely rocking. And I think we cannot let it get away from us early. I'm going to say my main one goal in this, Jake, I'm going to say no goals in the first 30 minutes from Kansas City. And I would like for us to score 1 in the first half. I think we need to be going into half either tied or up, but more specifically, no goals in the first 30 from them.
I think Kansas City is going to be dependent on long balls and trying to get in behind us, knowing that we are vulnerable there. So I think that piece of defending is really important for me. Set piece defending and not giving away cheap fouls will be really important in this game because, again, against teams that you can beat, you cannot give them anything. You can't give them an inch. And I think those are giving them inches there. I think we got to press them into the ground. This is a team that can possess, especially in the offensive third, and they're known to have a lot of touches in that third, but make them make mistakes and counter at will and just send numbers forward and make them pay. I think that's an opportunity for us to get in behind. And then finally, saw it last night with Berkey. again, we're going to need him. He's been needed in every single game we've played against this team so far. We're going to need a man of the match performance from Berkey to win the game. So I think that's how I round out the keys of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think this is one that we need to be able to, at this point, you and I were kind of texting about it. We're going to get into the starting 11 here in a second, but this is just one where it's just, we don't really have a form anymore. We don't have a style. You just got to find a way to get some points. And I think this is a team that they need to rally together in the locker room. The new guys are coming in. We'll see how many minutes we'll talk about that too, but you just got to find a way to win and not tie. We need wins at this point, and you got to do it at Kansas City.
And you know how you win? You get the right personnel on the roster. And me, as someone who's just trying to take care of my family, take care of my home, take care of everything in my life, Hoffman Brothers are one of those people that I stick on that team. They're in my starting 11. They are a consistent resource to deliver on anything that I need from a home services front. I have the home protection plan. It gets me expedited access to appointments and service and make sure that I can have them out. They're on my team and getting any service that I need for anything when it comes to heating, cooling, appliances, any sort of things I feel like under the roof. Hoffman Brothers are there for you. And I see them, they're there for everyone else, man. The amount of trucks that I've seen this week is absurd. Like I've been counting. I'm almost going to start a little counter and I'm going to do it by per week. But I think right now it's Thursday time we're recording. I've probably seen 7 or 8 and I don't venture out much. So that's telling you something. But Hoffman Brothers obviously are a great partner for us. And if you want to reach out to them and they can become a partner for you, make sure you give them a call at 314-664-3011 or visit them online at hoffmanbros.com. And now, Justin, into the Hoffman Brothers predicted starting 11 with now the eligibility from some new faces. All right, let's do it. So again, we're calling this out because it's important. Technically, the window is now open for the MLS. Anyone that we have signed can play from an eligibility perspective. Will they play and start on Saturday is where I think the head goes. Personally, I think Toyhert is the only person, maybe besides Jake Gerwood-Reich, that could see minutes for sure. And that's Jake Gerwood-Reich out of necessity now that Nilsson's gone. I'm assuming he's gone, by the way. That's not something we've confirmed. But in a Hartel, I'm stuck on because I know he hasn't been around as much. I don't even think he was in St. Louis as of earlier this week. So starting 11, I love what you put out here, Justin. So I'm going to go for it right now. Berkey, obviously. Jay Reed comes back. Good to get him some rest last night. I think Hebert into the center back position makes the most sense for me. I totally agree with that. I'm done with Yarrow right now. Winslow obviously had a tough game a couple games ago. So Hebert, Parker, the guys that got us some success last year, let's go back to them, see if they still have that chemistry. Familiarity, I think, is important in this time. Totland obviously goes back to right. You have Blum and Leuven. So I like the Leuven in the 8, obviously. Blum came in last night, I thought played okay. So you want to have him return to the 6. Obviously, your kind of hands are tied with Durkin being gone.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say, and for why Durkin's gone, he just received his 9th yellow. Technically, he had 1 good behavior, so technically his 8th. Every time that when we got 5, that's your first suspension. Then every 3 thereafter. So he's suspended for this game. And I also don't think we're going to be seeing Indy. I think that's a broken nose and concussion protocol. Quick turnaround, probably not likely. So Reed, Hebert, Parker, Totland across the back, left to right. I'm going Blum and Leuven in front of them. And then this is where the only thing that you could possibly switch up, Jake, in my opinion. And then I'm going Kojima, Toyhert, Klein with Thor up top. And I already mentioned it, like maybe Kojima comes back, but I don't think that you could have Kojima and Blum there. That seems a little shaky for me if you wanted to push Leuven forward. So I don't think this is the game to do it. I think if you were going to do it, it's Durkin and Kojima that could hold that down. I don't think it's a Blum and Kojima. So I really do think that it's Blum and Leuven in front of the back 4. And then across the top left, I put Kojima out wide. Hackworth already talked about that. He's seen him and he'd like to see him play in that position. I think you put Toyhert underneath of Thor in the middle and then Johnny Klein on the right.
Yeah, I like the lineup. I do think that Toyhert will start this game. They've kind of they've always talked about him being available for this match, and he's been the one that's been here the longest so far. So I feel like he's well integrated at this point. I could see him starting in the 10, like you mentioned, or us getting even a little bit more creative and even starting him up top by himself as well. Just because like Thor, again, I don't know what to expect from him, man. Sometimes he gives me hope that he's going to turn into something that we thought he was going to be. And sometimes he has nights like last night where it's just missing, just not involved. And when he does get involved, it's not impressive at all. So I think either way, you've got to put Toyherd in and see what he can do.
I actually wouldn't mind. Maybe I'll flip to that. Putting Toyherd up top, drop Thor back to the left winger, put Johnny Klein underneath the Toyherd, and put Kojima on the right side. I mean, Kojima is just a utility guy at this point. We can literally play him in any of the front six positions, maybe not up top. So 5, the 2 in front of the back 4, and then the 3 in front of them. I think Kojima could go to the right, Johnny in the middle, Thor on the left with the Toyherd up top.
Yeah. So, Justin, talk about your prediction here. I'm seeing yours, and we're getting to our Grahammers as well. What do you think is going to happen in this match?
I think there's going to be goals. My hope is that we score first, and it gives us some life, because if we don't score first and we're away, and this team's been having pretty solid home form, I think it's going to be a tough one for us. So I'm going with a 2-2 draw, Jake. Unfortunately, I see yours as well. I just don't see, with the way that we're playing, unless we're starting, like, I would feel better if Marcel Hartel and Toyherd were also both playing locked in. We could get a little bit more firepower, but we're just not scoring goals right now. So I understand Kansas City's letting them up. So I think we can score 2 goals. That's just a very conservative little look for me there. What are your thoughts on a prediction there?
I'm going 3-1. I feel like this is a game that we're going to get up for, and it speaks for itself. There's been so little to celebrate this season. This is one of those things that you have to get up for, and you have to give the fans something to cheer about. And I think everyone will be feeling that pressure to deliver. So I'm thinking 3-1 W as my results for us to go away and get our first away win of the season. I think it'd be fantastic. So I'm going 3-1. What is Vegas saying about this game? City is at plus 270 money line. Sporting at minus 120. The draw at plus 285. Over under is set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is minus 180. So they agree with you as well, Justin. And the under 2.5 plus 140. So where are you finding value here, Justin? I've got a couple, and I'm probably going to spread out pretty significantly on this game, given the goals that are known to be coming. But what do you think?
I'm just going straight easy for City over 1.5 at plus 150. I think it falls both of our predictions. I do think that this is a game where we need to figure out to score goals. This is a leaky defense, second worst in the MLS for goals against. I think we can score at least 2 goals here. Yes, I understand it's a little bit of run against the form, but I don't know what else to do at this point. I'm not taking money line. So what are your thoughts?
I've got 3 that I am significantly considering, and I have to pick, but over 3.5 in the game. So I'm going to go ahead and add a goal to the line that's currently set. That's at plus 140. So I'm expecting 4 goals in that. Both of us predicted 4 goals, though, in our predictions. Both teams to score first half at plus 225. I did some research there. That seems to hit a lot for both teams. And then second half being the highest scoring half, though, total. It was last match, and that's at minus 115. I think I'm most tempted to go the over 3.5 at plus 140 and ride that one as my Grahammer.
Yeah, I would do that. And just for math guys stuff, Jake, I would not bet both teams to score in the first half and the second half.
Yeah, I'm not going to do both of those.
You got to pick one. So I kind of like the juice on the both teams score first half. I think, like I said, if we can punch them in the mouth early, and I think if we do that, they're going to really open up, and we could let one in as well. So not a bad look.
Yeah, both teams really want this game very, very badly. So I think you'll see a game that delivers to the expectations of this rivalry and delivers to the expectations of fans turning on MLS matches. Like, this is what you'll want to see. It's always a highlight. It's always a fixture that I feel like can entice even casual fans into with no ties to St. Louis or Kansas City. So this game will deliver. It's going to be fun. I encourage everyone to watch it agnostic of the season. Let's just treat this as a one-off. It's a rivalry match. Throw away what's happened before this, and let's watch this game with a fresh, clean slate, and let's treat it like that. And I hope our players do too. Unbind yourself from all the weight of this season, and let's approach this game free to just run at these guys and just go for it.
Last regular season match for over a month when we're coming up into Leagues Cup. So let's just go for it, fellas. I agree. It's going to be a fun, exciting match. The atmosphere is going to be great. I'll be in Kansas City. Shoot us a DM if you'll be out there. And if you're not there, I don't know why you wouldn't be at the pitch on that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Saturday night. Go get some frozen Irish coffees. Go get some food. Go get some drinks. Hang out outside, inside, wherever you want to go to. Get to the pitch right across the street from City Park, about as close as you can get to home. So get to the pitch. That is our home. And if you're in Kansas City, shoot us a DM. I'll be in Crossroads during the day, getting some drinks and some food, and then heading, like an hour and a half out of the city that I got to drive after that. So I'll take an Uber for sure.
Yeah, have fun at the mall. Make sure you visit Nebraska Furniture Mart while you're out there. But Justin, enjoy as our correspondent on the ground, and for you all making the journey, safe travels. And for everyone not making the journey, let's just enjoy this one. And we have nothing to lose. So roll City. we are all for City on this podcast today. We are being optimistic as we can, and I'm actually really feeling okay about this one. So we'll see. But Sunday, look forward to our recap. It's hopefully going to be a positive one. And thank you all for listening today, and we will talk to you then. Have a great weekend, everyone.
All for City.